Well, welcome everyone to EllieMD's live educational series. I'm one of tonight's hosts, Brenda Rios, EllieMD's social media manager. We're so glad you're here as we continue our mission to help people live healthier, longer lives. At EllieMD, we go beyond telehealth. We're building a community rooted in education, innovation, and personalized support to empower your wellness journey. And I'm happy to announce my other host, Nikki. She is LEMD's Director of Marketing. So, Nikki, come say a quick hello.
Hello, everyone. I've met some of you. As Brenda said, I'm the Director of Marketing here at LEMD. Been here for a few months now, so still getting to know everyone. In the past, I've worked for other direct sales companies and in marketing and in creative for years, and I've had the pleasure in the past of working with Dr. Shawn Talbott, who we have here today. Dr. Shawn, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, it's great to see you, Nikki. Um, yeah, so where should I start? I'm what some people call a psychonutritionist. My PhD is in nutritional biochemistry, but the kind of work that I do is looking at the link between food and mood, and even more specifically, specific nutrients and how they can help with different mood states. So we might look at, a probiotic strain and how it can help with mood, or we'll look at a prebiotic fiber and how it can help with resilience, or an herb and how it can help with energy or focus or something like that. So a lot of the work that I do is around like the gut-brain axis, so all the signals that come from your gut and eventually make their way up to your brain can help change how you feel and how you perform and how you show up in the world. So it's all about lifestyle, I guess, if you want to say it that way. So happy to be here tonight to chat with you guys.
That's awesome. You've actually written several books on this topic, right? And your newest one's mental fitness. For
Yep.
those who haven't read the book or haven't heard about it, what is mental fitness and how does that fit into the psychonutrition?
Yeah, so yeah, mental fitness is my latest one, and it's all around this idea. The easiest way to describe it is that I'll say to people, how you feel is not just in your head, it's also in your gut, which is what we call your second brain, and it's also in your heart, which is what we call your third brain. So when we say gut brain axis or heart brain axis, it's this idea that your second brain and your third brain are sending signals up to your first brain in your head, and that's determining in large part your mental fitness, which is your mood, which is your energy level, which is your mental focus, which is your ability to, not just go, be motivated, but it's also your ability to sort of wind down and relax and recover and have good sleep quality. And so, like, you can think of it as like I try to make the case in the book that mental fitness is just as important as physical fitness. But, by the time you get to the end of the book, the last chapter is like a Trojan horse where it says, you know what? They're the same. When you are improving your mental fitness, it's the same exact biochemistry, stress hormones, inflammatory markers, blood sugar, all that kind of stuff that underlies physical fitness. So the reason I focus on the mental piece first is we can change that in people pretty quickly. We can help them feel better first. And then while they're feeling better, all this other stuff is working in the background to improve, their body's ability to repair and regenerate, and their health gets better. So it's like, it's all connected.
That's like what are some ways, so if it's all connected, like are there things like immediate steps people can take? You said it's kind of under our control to some degree. What are some elements that affect it as far as
Yeah, so as a biochemist, right? One of the things that I really try to educate people about is that the reason that we make specific lifestyle recommendations, like, what supplement to take or what foods to eat or something like that, is because of the underlying biochemistry. So, we might be able to change stress hormone levels like cortisol, for example. If we can do that, someone's going to be less stressed out. It's going to remove a block that gets in the way of your serotonin, so that, if you remove the cortisol, your serotonin is going to work better, so you're happier. If you remove the cortisol, your dopamine is going to work better, so you're more motivated. If you remove the cortisol, some of the peptides that we'll probably talk about later will work better, so you can get a better, like experience out of your weight loss journey, or whatever it is that you're doing. So like those changes in biochemistry will directly lead to like a feeling. You'll feel less stressed out, you'll feel more stress resilience, like you can handle stress, and you'll like that, like you will enjoy feeling better, and you'll keep doing whatever that regimen is that we have you on, whether it's a supplement or whatever. And as a result of you doing it consistently, your body's going to get better. Your physical health is going to improve. So there's all kinds of examples that we can unpack if you want. But it's these biochemical signals. So cortisol is one of the really important ones. Inflammation is one of the really important ones. Blood sugar control, oxidation. So there's others, but we can, those are some of the big ones that we focus on.
You mentioned supplementation as one of the items that might like help with this. And I know
Yeah.
physical fitness is another one. I guess what's an easy entry point for someone who's looking to do something like re help their cortisol or blood sugar? Because I don't know, you just talked about biking in the snow today. That's not something I'm about to go do. How do you get over that like initial hurdle to start
Yeah,
heading in the right direction?
Yeah, a lot of times that initial hurdle, so probably anything that I just said, except for the biochemical angle, isn't it's probably things people have heard of before, right? You've heard a billion times. You need to eat better. You need to eat less processed food. You need to eat more fruits and vegetables. Like everyone's heard that a million times. You've heard you need to be physically active on most days of the week, and get off the couch. You've heard that a billion times. You've heard you need to get 8 hours of sleep a billion times, right? So everybody knows those, but why don't we do them, right? There's a gap between what we understand intellectually and what we actually do, right? That sort of behavior gap. Why aren't we doing these things? We know they're good for us. And I think it comes like that's for me, that's where a good supplement can come in. It can really give you that spark. It can be the amplifier for you to say, like, okay, here's a supplement that helps with my motivation. Now I'm more likely to be physically active. Here's a supplement that lowers my stress. So now I'm less likely to eat the junk food or the comfort food. And I might be more likely to choose, a salad for lunch or something like that. Right. So it's like little things like that where supplements can really sort of encourage us more to do the healthy lifestyle things that we need to do. But if it like when it really comes down to it, so I'll tell you this quick story. I was in an elevator in Chicago, I think, right, going down to give a presentation. So I was all dressed up, right? I had on a suit and a tie. I looked very dapper. And a woman got onto the elevator, and she was also dressed up, going to a completely different meeting. And she's like, "Wow, what are you here for?" I'm like, "I'm going to give a talk like in 5 minutes. I got to go." And we talked about what I was talking about, this stuff, mental fitness. And we got to the lobby. She stepped off the elevator and she turned around and she looked at me. She goes, "What's the one thing that I need to do to improve my mental fitness?" And I like she caught me off guard, and I went, "Eat more fiber." Which like because if you feed your microbiome, you're going to send a lot better signals across your whole gut brain axis, right? So that's my number one thing. The number two thing would be get better sleep. So if you could do those two things, eat more fiber during the day and get better sleep quality at night, it would solve like half of all the things that most people complain about mentally and physically, honestly, because we're so deficient in those two things.
So people are really feeling it when they're not getting their sleep and fiber.
Yeah,
You're saying?
totally. Because both of those things in different ways completely upset your underlying biochemistry. And that's going to lead you to be hungrier for junk food. It's going to lead you to feel, irritable and unmotivated and sad and kind of blah. And if you can get those signals going back the other way. So sleep is going to solve a lot of the top down signaling, and more fiber is going to rectify some of the bottom up, coming from the gut and going to the rest of the body.
As far as the bottom up, you're kind of speaking about the microbiome and the gut-brain
Yeah.
axis, right? For those who don't really understand that connection and how that affects serotonin and dopamine and those things, can you describe a bit more about the gut-brain axis specifically? Because that's not something I
Yeah.
used to think about as far as like affecting my mood.
Yeah, yeah. So this is the kind of stuff that you and I used to geek out about in our previous company together. So Yeah, so the easiest way to think about this is that your microbiome, like the collection of trillions of bacteria in your gut, are the source for the majority of your neurotransmitters. And mo like most people don't know that, right? They think of serotonin as the happiness neurotransmitter that's made in the brain. And it is made in the brain, but 90% of it is actually made in the gut. So I have to say this, right? Just so people are sort of clear. The serotonin you make in your gut doesn't like leak out of your gut and get into your blood and then leak across your blood-brain barrier and get into your brain and make you happier that way. But we know if we can get your gut to make more serotonin, people are happier, probably because your immune system tells your brain that you have more serotonin or your vagus nerve or something like that. But we know that the majority of our neurotransmitters are made in our gut. So 90% of our serotonin, probably 70% of our dopamine, which is involved with motivation, about half of our GABA that helps us relax in the face of stress. All that kind of stuff is made in your gut, including a lot of the oxytocin that helps us connect with other people, a lot of our melatonin that helps us with sleep quality. All that kind of stuff is made in our gut, including all kinds of other signaling molecules. So, if we focus on the microbiome as a way to help us feel better, like we call it the second brain for a reason, and it's because it's in constant communication with the brain in our head.
That kind of goes along with a question actually in the chat that Kim has here about supplementation for motivation. You touched on it a bit there. It sounds like then the gut microbiome and what you're eating or what you're supplementing with does, in fact, through some of those neurotransmitters, affect
Yeah,
motivation.
exactly. So yeah, and so dopamine is one of those key ones, right? So there are supplements that we can give that aren't so motivation is different than energy. So when we're studying a psychological mood state, we can study depression separate from anxiety, and we can study that separate from something called confusion, which is like brain fog, and that is separate from vigor, and that's separate from like you get the idea. Energy and motivation are separate mood states. They overlap in some ways, but what a lot of people are actually lacking is motivation, and that's a dopamine thing. And so there are supplements like lychee extract is something that can help with motivation. Um, Pine bark extract can help with motivation. There are particular kinds of probiotics, specific strains of probiotics that can increase dopamine production. So the idea is that you can supplement with those, and you're more motivated, and like you feel more energetic, you feel more um, likely to get into action, if you will. But it's different than energy. Energy is touchy sometimes because you can use caffeine or green tea or a whole bunch of things on energy, but there's always this risk of like overstimulating the system, and you can get jittery and you get anxious and things like that. So they can coexist as long as you balance them.
As far as the energy and clarity and motivation, um, so the gut health affects it, but you're saying that sleep and exercise and things like that also do it. In what ways does like physical activity come into this mix in balancing the equation?
Yeah, well, physical activity is one of those things that if I could design a supplement that gave you the benefits of exercise, done.
That'd
Like
be
you wouldn't have to have anything else. Like so I'm a fellow of an organization called the American College of Sports Medicine, and our tagline at ACSM is exercise is medicine. Because it does everything. Exercise is good for your mood, it's good for your metabolism, it's good for your weight, it's good for your blood sugar control, it's good for your longevity, it's good for it prevents all the things, right? Cancer, Alzheimer's, blah 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 blah. So exercise is sort of a non-negotiable, but it's not. Whenever I say exercise, I wish I had a different word for it because you don't actually have to like train for a marathon in order to get the benefits of exercise. It's something that we call non-exercise physical activity, just moving your body. Every time here's a good example. Every time you contract your muscles, and the more muscles you contract, the better. So like full body exercise, your muscles will make these compounds called myokines, and myokines have anti-inflammatory effects in the body, and they have mental fitness effects in the body. So we'll do this, right? I'll contract this muscle, just moving that muscle, not really exercising it, just moving it. Your body makes these myokines. They're peptide signalers, right? You guys are all about peptides. These are peptide signals that will go to the brain, and not only do they signal mental fitness, they signal better mood, they signal better motivation, they signal hope. They are very pro-social, almost like what oxytocin does. They make us more hopeful. They make us more connected with other people. It's one of the coolest sets of molecules. Someone like some pharmaceutical company, I guarantee, is working on a peptide myokine that will someday be used as a as an antidepressant kind of a thing. I'm looking forward to that day. But we have access to that by just moving our bodies, and that's something that we should do every single day.
You mentioned peptides being created by exercise to some degree.
Yeah.
For those who are new to peptides, how do you, like what is a peptide and why do they matter?
Yeah, peptides are hot right now, right? I think everybody who's on this call would agree with me on that.
Mhm.
Um, so the way I describe peptides is so let me step back a little bit, right? I'm a nutritional biochemist, right? So I love talking about peptides just as much as I love talking about hormones and neurotransmitters and short chain fatty acids and all of that, cytokines, etc. They're all signaling molecules. And so I like to describe peptides as like it's a signaling molecule. Um, think of you being on a like a construction crew. The peptides are the foremen. The peptides are the ones that are yelling out the instructions. And that's great, right? They tell the body what to do, right? So if you get a peptide like a GLP-1, it's going to tell a part of your body, the hypothalamus in your brain, it's going to tell you you're not hungry. It's going to tell, depending on which one you're taking, it might also tell your pancreas to make more insulin, which is the hormone that controls blood sugar. So if you do those two things, then you're gonna be less hungry. That's a good thing, and you're gonna have better blood sugar control. So you have better overall like metabolic balance is a nice way to describe that. Those are two really really good things. But here's what a lot of people don't sort of like get. The next step of that is that somebody has to do the work. That's where lifestyle comes in. That's where the right nutrition comes in, the right sleep quality regimen, the right physical activity program, the right supplementation regimen. Like those are the workers on the construction site. Those are the supplies. That's the wood that's going to build the house and the shingles and the window panes and all that kind of stuff. If you don't have those raw materials, the building materials, and if you don't have the workers, that signal that the peptide is telling the body to do something is it's going to have some effect, but it's not going to have the overall effect. And so you're not going to build the beautiful castle that you think you are.
So they really work in con best in conjunction with some of these other modalities that
Yeah,
you've been talking about.
completely in conjunction. And that's why I think, with peptides, one of the things I'm giving a big keynote at a big nutrition conference in a couple of months about peptides. And the title of my talk is Peptides, Hype or Hope. And I really want to get this idea across. Like I'm very pro peptide. There's lots of really cool things that we can do with peptides now. Um, but if but you can get much better benefits if they are like undergirded by a good lifestyle program. What would be a good example? Well, some of the things that I just mentioned, cortisol, sleep quality, inflammatory balance. Those are things that we know are going to interfere with peptide signaling. And this is one of the reasons why you can get two individuals who take the same exact peptide regimen, and one of them gets amazing results, and one of them gets so-so results or no results or side effects. Well, what's the difference? They just took the same they just took the same regimen. Why did they get completely different results? It's probably that background of what does their cortisol look like? What does their inflammation look like? What does their gut health look like? And so if we can use lifestyle to make that better, their overall experience on peptides is going to be much, much more positive.
Are there specific things that like someone like what would the first steps be in like nutrition or otherwise as far as supporting your peptide or GLP-1 journey? I've heard the importance
Yeah,
of fiber, protein, like what are some good
yeah.
ways
So
there?
it kind of depends on the peptide, right? So if it's GLP-1, right, which are probably the most most popular, most well-known category of peptides right now. The potential problems are like most people are aware of the they're aware of the muscle loss problem, right? So a lot of people will lose a lot of weight on peptides. And like this is something I've studied for 30 years, right? Whenever you lose weight, you lose of that weight, of that 10 pounds that you just lost on the scale, some amount of it is fat, some amount of it is protein, muscle, some amount of it is bone. And so you actually like you want to lose 100% fat, but when you lose it very quickly, that isn't what happens. You lose a lot of muscle, you lose a lot of bone. And the way to prevent that muscle loss, or at least reduce that muscle loss, is to make sure you're eating enough protein. Make sure you're taking your protein throughout the day, not just one time. We can put a pin in that, come back to it, but make sure you're physically active. So from that's probably the biggest concern for a lot of people. Losing muscle is really, really bad. It's bad for your overall metabolism. It's bad for your motility. It's probably bad for your longevity. We know that people who are able to maintain their muscle mass over the course of their life live longer and live better. They have a better health span too. So that's a big, big piece of it. Um, Sleep quality is a big piece of it. People who have poor sleep quality will have less beneficial effects on a GLP-1 than people who have better sleep quality. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of it's related to blood sugar control, some of it's related to cortisol exposure. But if you can get better sleep quality, you're going to have better effects on your GLP-1. Um, some people on GLP-1s will have problems with their gut function, right? Some people feel nauseous. Some people feel constipated. So you can use natural things like motility enhancers to make sure the food is moving through their gastrointestinal tract at the proper speed, so it doesn't get stuck, so to speak. Because if it does, then you're going to develop things like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. You might develop leaky gut. You're gonna have problems there. So, those are a couple, right? So muscle, sleep quality, gut function. Every once in a while, I'll say this last thing. Every once in a while, we see some people who get on a GLP-1 and they feel just kind of blah. And it could be because of any of the reasons that I just said, but it could also be that the signaling in your brain, you need to improve your motivation. You need to improve your neurotransmitter signaling so that you feel energetic and happy again. Those are a few examples.
Comes back to it really seems like the balance of it all, right? Like the more you exercise, the better you'll sleep to some degree, and it kind of vary back and forth as far as the influence of.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think what happens is that if you get that right balance, right, you have the right level if you have the right GLP-1, you have the right level of the GLP-1, and that person can start to feel a little bit better, then they're more inclined to be physically active. They're more inclined to make the good changes in their diet and not just say like, "Oh, I'm not hungry, I'll just have a bag of chips." If we can sort of encourage them that they go hand in hand, these lifestyle considerations, along with whatever peptide regimen that they're on, they're going to get better results. And as they get those better results, it starts this, what I like to call a virtuous cycle, where they're getting better results from the peptide because of the lifestyle, and because of that they're more inclined to adhere to the lifestyle, and then the lifestyle, things become more consistent for them. It just it gets better and better and better.
Um, as far as the protein aspect of all of this, is there
Yeah.
some sources that are better protein than others? Do you suggest from food or like a good quality protein supplement? Can that be just as effective? Um,
Yeah, I think you have to take a protein supplement when you're on a GLP-1 journey. I think it's really, really hard to do it with food. Um, for a lot of reasons, right? A lot of times people who are on GLP-1s just don't have the appetite for, a chicken breast or a couple of eggs, or, any of the good high protein sources, we would say. The reason I like protein supplements though is because, I'm not saying like only do protein supplements, but the advantage of a protein supplement is that you can insert it very easily throughout the day. The big problem that most people, or the big mistake that most people make with their protein intake is that they get it only at their dinner. Um, and they're not getting at their breakfast. Like, yeah, I trained a lot of dietitians, and dietitians are sort of trained um, in their in their educational curriculum that you know everybody gets plenty of protein, right? And if you look at the intake of protein for most people on like a gram basis, it's pretty good for most people, at least in America. But it is not distributed correctly. Most people have a protein intake that is backloaded. It's like dinner time, and if you look at what they're doing at breakfast and lunch, you're deficient in protein. So you're taking too little protein earlier in the day, and you're taking too much protein in the evening. And so protein supplements allow us to sort of distribute that protein intake throughout the day. And that's good for all aspects of your metabolism. It's good for preventing muscle loss. It's good for stimulating muscle gain, especially when you combine it with exercise. It's good for appetite control. It's good for blood sugar control, which is the first step of fat burning. So, like using a protein supplement throughout the day, like you might do it for your breakfast and you might do it for your lunch, and then have a healthy dinner. Like that is a great way for a lot of people to go, but it also gives you that flexibility to sort of stick a protein dose in there whenever it makes the most sense for you.
We know like protein, or at least I always think of protein as affecting muscles in particular. Is it something that can also help reduce hair thinning or other effects people might see while on a GLP or GIP?
Um, Probably, yeah. So protein's needed for all your tissues to do their repair and rebuilding process. I actually will recommend that people take a protein supplement right before they go to bed. I recommend that to all my athletes, but people who aren't athletes will go, well, wait a minute, I don't want to do that because then I'll have those calories, and then excuse me, and then I'll store those calories, and I'm trying to lose weight, and that goes against what I'm trying to do. And I try to explain to them that that protein will be very well utilized overnight, where your body is generally doing its repair and rejuvenation process, right? That extra protein that you take just before you go to bed, that can also help to modulate blood sugar levels overnight. So, and that can improve sleep quality. One of the issues that people sometimes who are on GLP-1s will find with their blood sugar is that if their dose of whatever GLP-1 they're on isn't just like completely dialed in, and they haven't had their protein throughout the day, they can at night they'll get this little drop in their blood sugar, what's called nocturnal hypoglycemia, where your blood sugar drops overnight, and it usually happens like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and you'll wake up. And people will wake up in the middle of the night and they'll go, why am I awake? Like, did I hear something? Did something go bump in the night? And they'll sort of listen for a second, and then hopefully they fall back asleep. But if their blood sugar drops too much, it sets off a fight or flight reaction. So then your cortisol goes up. That causes your liver to shoot up your blood sugar, and now you've got high blood sugar and high cortisol, and now you can't fall back asleep. If you had just had a little bit of protein before you went to bed, like a little smoothie, that would maintain your blood sugar. You get a better night's sleep, and then you get all the benefits that we just talked about. So, yeah, you like hand in hand, peptides and lifestyle interventions is going to make the whole thing better for everybody.
Now, is there something you look for when you're like looking for a protein supplement? Are there some like things that are better or worse than others when it comes to protein supplementation?
Yeah, Nikki, people ask me all the time, like, what's the best protein supplement? And it's really hard to say what is the best protein supplement. Like some people will do fine with whey, some will do fine with casein, which are both milk proteins. Some people will absolutely not do well with those at all. But both of my kids are good examples. They can't do whey, they can't do casein. It doesn't agree with their immune system. So then people will look at plant proteins. Like I prefer people to take a plant protein throughout the day. And a blended plant protein is going to be the best thing. Like, because then you're getting, that plant protein isn't just protein usually. It's protein and it's oligosaccharides, which are a kind of prebiotic fiber that's good for your gut. If you combine them the right way, you can get something that tastes good. Sometimes you'll find like, oh, here's this soy protein and it has like a gritty, kind of planty, organic taste. And, if you're going to be taking this several times a day, you want it to taste good, so that's part of it. Um, yeah, so I usually recommend that people take a plant protein during the day, and I reserve the dairy proteins for people who can tolerate them to take them around the time of their exercise regimen because whey and casein actually do seem to be a little bit better at muscle protein hypertrophy, like growing muscles. So if you were an athlete and your main thing was to pack on muscle, then whey actually does a little bit better job of that than a plant protein would. But for like the average person who's just trying to like get their protein intake, maybe maintain their muscle mass to prevent, muscle wasting, I think a plant protein is going to be sufficient.
Okay. And so then even those on like GLP-1s or GIPs, I mean, that does seem something with like specifically muscle maintenance to some degree, and the whey might really help there.
Yeah, so muscle maintenance, but a big part of muscle maintenance is that consistent dosing. So that you're having a little bit, it's almost like thinking like you're having an IV drip of these amino acids from your protein a little bit all day long. You almost want to graze on your protein instead of saving it all for your dinner time. Like your body will make use of that, but it'll make much more efficient use of it if you're having, let's say 20 grams and then 20 grams and then 20 grams and then 20 grams, frequent small meals. And that tracks with people who are on GLP-1s because they typically don't have the appetite for a bigger serving. And you don't want to load up the gut when one of the things that GLP-1s will do at the level of the gut is slow the transit of whatever that food is. And so you don't want to have a big bolus of protein. You'd rather have smaller ones that the gut's going to tolerate better.
Deb asks, like, what are some ways you can monitor the efficiency of the protein you're taking? Is it blood markers? Is it like the effects? Is it like what
Yeah,
are
well, the best thing would be to like while you're measuring your weight, you're also measuring your muscle mass. And the most convenient way to do that is for someone to just buy one of those BIA scales. BIA stands for bioelectrical impedance analysis. So like there are scales you can step on barefoot that are gonna measure your weight, but they're also going to tell you what your muscle mass is, and they'll tell you your fat percentage. So they're not very expensive anymore. Like the one that we use in our clinical trials is thousands and thousands of dollars, but the underlying technology of it you can find in $100 bathroom scale. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, well, that's probably the best way to do it. Probably the most accessible way to do it. Because when you lose weight, I was starting to make the case a little while ago, or make the point that when you lose 10 pounds of weight, and you're losing that weight quickly, you could be losing 30 or 40% of that as muscle. And you really don't want to do that. You want to maintain that muscle as much as possible. And the way to do that is to look at the underlying biochemistry. Cortisol is involved, blood sugar signaling is involved, inflammatory markers are involved. So if you're doing all these lifestyle things that we're talking about, you're controlling that underlying biochemistry and you're minimizing the muscle loss, which means you're maximizing the fat loss. Okay, so like of that 10 pounds, you know, only maybe 1 pound is muscle instead of 3 or 4 pounds.
right? And that goes back to that's like a really important thing in longevity, right? I mean, weight management over lifespan is important in longevity, but so is something like muscle mass.
Yeah, so if you look at like the longevity world, what we used to call the anti-aging world, um, in the longevity world, that is one of the key hallmarks of aging, the ability to maintain muscle mass from age 50 on is a huge predictor of your ability to continue living and to continue living well, like what we call not just lifespan, but health span. Maintaining your muscle mass is absolutely huge. And really the best way to maintain it is by staying physically active. It really is a use it or lose it sort of a situation.
Um, you mentioned also just kind of like with this I don't know, like the protein cycle of eating, like having some before bed will help you sleep and not have that wake up thing. You also mentioned how it affects the cortisol in your
Hmm.
body. Is are like what are some good ways of managing cortisol spikes um, and cortisol throughout the day?
Yeah, so cortisol is one of the my favorite things to talk about. There's lots of ways to do it. So getting good sleep quality is gonna be the first thing, right? Poor sleep quality or inadequate sleep, excuse me, is probably the number one thing that's going to increase your overall cortisol exposure. So we know that people who are normal sleepers, what we call people who get 8 hours of sleep, we call them normal sleepers, compared to short sleepers, people who get 6 hours. The difference between that 2 hours, 6 hours versus 8 hours, the 6 hour person, the short sleep person, is going to have a 50% overexposure to cortisol. And that's going to interfere with their blood sugar. It's going to make them hungrier the next day. It's going to lead to more inflammation in the body. If it's a chronic exposure to cortisol, right, you get 6 hours on a regular basis. Now that cortisol is going to become catabolic in your body and it's going to break your muscles down even more than what you're already experiencing. So the easiest, best, most direct, impactful way to manage your cortisol is to make sure you get good sleep quality. But it's kind of a chicken and egg scenario, right? If you get poor sleep quality, your cortisol is going to be higher the next day. Your stress is going to be higher. You're probably going to be more irritable. That's going to increase your cortisol. That's going to interfere with your ability to sleep. So like it's a problem for your sleep and it becomes a problem because you can't sleep, if that makes sense. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll try to short circuit that by using a cortisol control supplement. And so like I've formulated supplements that control cortisol. There's things that we can use like pine bark will do it. There's specific strains of probiotic bacteria that can lower cortisol. There's things like theanine that can lower cortisol, and you can use those in the day to help you be less stressed, and you can use them at night to help you relax and increase your GABA so you can relax and have a good quality sleep. So there's a lot of cortisol controlling supplements that are out there. And I write about a lot of these. Like I write about them in the mental fitness book, but I also write about them on my blog. So if people want to go to my blog, doctalbot.com, they can see some of the things that I write about there.
Um, Bringing it back to peptides a little bit, there's some peptides like NAD, Samoralin,
Hmm.
that are gaining a lot of attention right now. How do each of these like contribute to longevity and like the long-term cellular health in
Yeah, one
conjunction
of the
with all
thing one
this?
of the things that I'm really following in the peptide world is like combining them. Sometimes people call it peptide stacking. We've been calling supplement stacking for years and years and years, and now we're starting to see it in the peptide world. So like you could take something like a GLP-1 to help you lose weight and lose fat mass. Great, but wait a minute, you're losing muscle mass. Could you use something like Samoralin to help you maintain that muscle mass, right? Because it's a growth hormone secretagogue. It's not growth hormone, but it's going to tell your pituitary to make growth hormone, and that's going to help with you maintaining your muscle mass. It can maybe even help with your sleep quality a little bit, right? Because there's a linkage between what growth hormone is doing, and because growth hormone is more active while you're sleeping, there's sort of a there's sort of a complementary aspect there. It's not going to put you to sleep, but it might help with your sleep architecture in terms of like REM sleep, deep sleep, that kind of stuff. Um, there's a lot of work in the mitochondrial space looking at NAD as a cellular enhancer or methylene blue as an electron transporter or there's all kinds of like microbiome derived I'm sorry, mitochondrial derived peptides that can help with efficiency of how the mitochondria are generating energy. So like I'm starting to see a lot more work around stacking to say like, okay, this peptide is going to help you lose fat. This peptide is going to help you maintain muscle. This peptide is going to help you with your energy levels or your mental focus. And you can really like look at that and go, yeah, who wouldn't want that? Right. But I look at it, right, understanding how they're all working biochemically, like what those signals are telling the different parts of the body. And what has to underlie all of that is what we've been talking about, right? Those signals are going to let's go back to our construction metaphor. Those peptides are the foreman saying, take this pile of two by fours from here to there, right? They're like they've given that instruction. Someone's got to be there to actually move it. You have to make sure that the two by fours are there in the first place. That's where nutrition comes in. That's where exercise comes in. That's where sleep quality comes in. So like that lifestyle regimen has to be in place in order for the peptides to like do their job at the level we want them to do.
Right. So it's almost like, so you're not getting in the way of any of the peptides that you are taking. You don't want to be undermining their work without by accidentally without.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it, Nikki. If you're not consistent with some of these lifestyle approaches, you are undermining what the peptides are trying to do in the first place. And that is probably the biggest pushback that I see like out there in the world right now. Like let's be honest, right? There is so much promise for peptides, but there's a lot of hype and a lot of noise out there right now too. And where I see the like the failure of peptides is when somebody makes the promise of, hey, just take this injection or just take these drops or just take whatever way you're delivering those peptides. Just take this and sit back and let it all happen. The people who follow that recommendation do not have a very good experience. The people who follow like what we've been talking about for the last like 40 minutes or so, they're the ones who are the examples where they say, "Yep, I lost weight and I felt great, and now like not only am I better than I was before, I'm looking forward to leveling up for this next kind of a thing." Like it opens up the possibilities, but it really is, first of all, making sure you're not undermining, and then maximizing, like using lifestyle as an amplifier of what the peptide signal is trying to do in the first place.
That makes me think too of like if people aren't seeing results right now, then they can maybe look at some of these things as possibly undermining or ways to amplify their results. Do you also see any, I mean, we've talked about this before, phased benefits. Is there some level of phased benefits when it comes to peptides and lifestyle changes as far as the results you see?
Yeah, yeah. So I launched a product about a month ago called Zenith, right? And it's a biotic product. It works across the gut-brain axis, and a lot of our customers are GLP-1 users. And what this range of supplements can help do is amplify that signal, right? Making sure that we're not undermining the signal, because it helps to lower cortisol, so that's going to take away an obstacle. It helps to lower inflammation. It helps with gut integrity. It's preventing leaky gut or solving leaky gut. It's helping with motivation. It's helping with mental clarity, so less brain fog. So like it's not doing the same things as what the GLP-1s are doing, but it is helping that signal be more efficient in its signaling in all the places that it needs to signal. So people come back and they go, "Yeah, I'm more energetic. I'm in a better mood. My gut seems to be working better, and I'm not getting those, motility problems and nausea problems and things like that." So, I think it really comes back to understanding what those peptide signals are, and then trying to say like, how can we make sure that those signals get to where they need to get and have the proper end signaling effect in the most efficient manner. And like we're in a really exciting time right now. Like, there's all these peptides that are, getting, better precision in how we can use them. And we're understanding that underlying biochemistry of the microbiome and gut integrity and gut brain axis and all that kind of stuff, so we can really bring it all together and give people the best experience.
Would you say most people, because you talk about amplifying it with products like the one you just came out with or others, um, is this something where people will see immediate results? Should they like be a little bit patient? Like, what have you seen as far as the trajectory of all of this?
Yeah, yeah. So that's where that like you used a term that I like to use called phased benefits, right? It's this
Hmm.
idea of you're not going to get all the benefits all at once on day one, or probably even in week one. Phased benefits is this idea of like a graded set of benefits. So you'll see things, right at the beginning. I'll use my product Zenith as an example. Um, on the day you use it, you're going to feel what we call relaxed alertness. Your stress will go down and your focus will come up. That's like an athlete getting into the zone. That's different. Like that can be done on day one, but we can't improve your depression on day one. That's something that takes a longer time. We can't solve your leaky gut on day one. That takes a longer amount of time. Your stress might come down on day one, but your ability to handle stress, what we call resilience, might be something that is more like a 2 week or 3 week sort of a thing. So consistency is really important, whether we're talking about supplements or whether we're talking about peptides. Consistency is that you're going to get some benefits really quickly, and then you'll get other benefits little more medium term. So, like maybe one day is early, maybe 1 week or 2 weeks is medium term, maybe 1 month, 2 months, 3 months is longer term. So, phase benefits is this idea of you're getting better, and then you're getting more better in different ways, and you're getting more better in different ways, and people have to sort of like be ready for that. Like another way I like to explain it is like if you're going to try to get in shape, right? Here, the New Year's coming in just a couple of weeks. So many people are going to say, I want to lose weight, I want to get in shape, I want to train for a 10K run, I want to train for a marathon, whatever. You're not going to get off the couch and run a marathon the next day, right? You have to progressively build yourself up. It's the same exact thing. So it's consistency with the regimen. It's, being patient for each one of those phases to exert itself. And they exert themselves on these different time courses just because of how the body works. Like an early effect might be because you're changing brain waves. A later effect might be because you're rebuilding the gut lining, and those just take different times to manifest.
And as all these come together, that would make something more effective, like a peptide that might have been being undermined initially, but
Right.
ultimately is like functioning better and better and better.
Right, right, exactly. And then, people, often don't like to talk about this, but it's okay, like what's next? Is your peptide journey going to last forever? Like, are you going to be on this GLP-1 for the rest of your life? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you'll be on this dose for a while and then you go on a microdose and that will keep you where you need to be. But the advantage of adhering to a prudent lifestyle while you're on the peptide sets you up for options, for later on. Like if you get off of that peptide eventually, then you have a good consistent regimen that you can just sort of, land into without the peptides or with a different peptide regimen or whatever, right? It just opens up the possibilities for people.
That kind of starting to have to wrap it up here. So that kind of leads great into our last question here, which would be, would that be the recommendation then if someone wants to elevate their overall health, like where would you recommend they start? Like what is the biggest difference long term?
I think it's trying to find something that's going to work for you, right? It's one thing for me, and I always try to like not paint the perfect utopian plan that everybody needs to be on all the time, right? I'm a professional nutritionist for goodness sake, and I don't need a perfect diet, right? Far from it. I do like to exercise, so I'm pretty good there. I don't always get good quality sleep. So everyone's trying their best with whatever
So we don't have to
whatever.
be overwhelmed, is what you're saying with all the.
Yeah, I think sometimes people think they have to be perfect in every one of these or else forget it, right? It's not at all an all or nothing sort of a thing. So I think the best thing that people can do is figure out what's going to work for them. And we just talked about a zillion things that people can do. And like when we hang up the call, I hope people will go, all right, what can I do? Uh, I can get more protein in my life, so that's what I'm going to focus on. Or I'm good there. I'm going to try to get more fiber. Okay, now I'm good there. Now I'm going to try to get better sleep quality. And then I'm going to start going to bed on a regular schedule, like go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time. But I'm going to try to do something to build my microbiome and my gut integrity because now I understand that those signals go across everything. So like it really is like sort of pick and choose. And what I choose to focus on might be different than what you choose to focus on for a million different reasons. So don't think that like that the podcaster you just listened to and they have this very involved morning routine that they do every morning and it takes them 4 hours. You don't have to think that you need to live up to that. They're probably not even really doing that. They're telling you that for effect. So figure out what it's going to do, what's going to work for you, and then be consistent with it, and then add on to it as you can.
Would you be like, would it be wrong to almost say start where it's kind of like easy for you? Like something that you're kind of more drawn to out of these things that have been listed here? Like,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, like so in my exercise physiology days, we'd try to get people to do more exercise. And people would say, like, what's the best exercise? Should I lift weights? Should I run? Should I get on the stair stepper? Should I get on the rowing machine? Like, what should I do? And we'd step back and go, Which one would you like to do?" And they'd go,
yeah.
"Well, I hate running." They were like, "Well, then don't get on the treadmill. Don't try to become a runner if you hate running. Be a biker, be a yoga, be a Pilates, be a like totally. So like what resonates with you is going to make it easier for you to be consistent with that. So yeah, 100%. We need to be realistic as well as biochemists at the same time.
Well, that's a relief. That way, Brenda and I don't need to be out on our bikes in the rain and the snow.
Yeah, no, I was like that too when I started my GLP-1 journey. I had already gone to the gym, but I thought, okay, I've really got to run, which I hate running. I feel like it's bad for my shins. Like I feel like they're already big. I don't want them bigger. But I just started to do the incline really high,
Yeah.
and I was able to see really amazing results that way. So I love the treadmill, but not for running. I like walking on it with a high incline.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
Amazing.
you do you, right?
Exactly. Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Shawn, for joining us. Thank
My
you,
pleasure.
everyone who has tuned in. If for anyone who wants to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Yeah, best place is just go to doctalbot.com because
Mm,
I've got ebooks there, I've got videos, I've got blog articles, I've got that's the perfect jumping off place to anywhere else that you might want
Perfect.
to find me.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I'll put that in the chat as well. And to everyone
Awesome.
who has tuned in, if you want to learn more about longevity and wellness solutions, please contact the person who might have invited you to this call. Shawn, thank you again so much for sharing your expertise and time with us this evening.
My pleasure. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yes, happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays. Thanks,
All
Sean.
right. Bye guys.
Thanks, everyone.